If only parenting were as smooth as bourbon. I'm Lene.
And I'm Jordan. And this is Bourbon and Babies.
Straight up parenting
on the rocks.
I'm tired. I'm hungry. How far?
Are we there
Gotta
yet?
move my body. Gotta use the potty. Better stop the car.
Jiggity jig. We are in the car, road tripping, and today on Bourbon and Babies we are talking about relocation.
Relocating with children. That's a hard thing, right? We have Brian and Lauren LeBlanc, the relocation king and queen.
King and queen. Experts on being new.
Why? Why are you guys the relocation king and queen, Brian?
Well, we've had to do it a couple different times because work forced me, and I got some career opportunities to take some new roles in different cities, and luckily I have a wife that is willing to be a trooper and head out with us.
And children.
Oh,
Children
yeah.
who are willing to be
Children.
troopers. Maybe
And
willing is not the right word.
We've relocated with children and without children.
How many times?
Let's see, our first year of marriage, we made 5 cross-country moves.
What? In 1 year?
In 1 year, from Houston to Denver, to Milwaukee to Chicago, back to Milwaukee, to Louisville, Kentucky.
Wow.
And we landed there for 9 years and had 2 babies there, and then moved to Philadelphia. Lived in Philadelphia for 3 years. And now we live in Dallas.
And how old were the kids when you moved from Louis to Philly?
From Louisville to Philly, our oldest, we have 2 girls. Our oldest was entering kindergarten, and our youngest was 2, so 5 and 2. And then when we moved again, it was 3 years later. So then our youngest was entering kindergarten, and our oldest was going into the 3rd grade.
So that's interesting. So it was almost like you knew what to do for the kindergartner the second time around because, well, but that doesn't always hold because kids are different.
Kids are different, yeah. I mean, we had some idea what was coming, but our girls are they handle the same situation so differently from each other. When we left Louisville, which was their home and the only place they lived, and the house they came home to when we brought them home from the hospital, we decided I read about, what's a good way to tell your kids you're going to move. So we put together a box, a giant present, with this beautiful bow on it. And inside the box were all of these Philadelphia themed things. So like a box of tasty cakes, which are made in Philadelphia, and a picture of the state of Pennsylvania with a heart, and a couple of like little critters moving book. And we gave them all of these like fun things to open. And really, like the little one was kind of, whatever. We were her social network. It didn't really matter. Wherever we were, she was fine. But the older one opened the present, and she's like looking at all the things and turning them over in her hands and saying, "Oh, okay, a treat. Oh, okay, a new book. Oh, okay, these toys are cool. What is?" She literally said,
birthday?
"Yeah." She said, "What is all this?" She was a very old 5-year-old. "What is all this?" And I said, "Well, Daddy's doing really well in his job, and he got a new job, and we're going to move to Philadelphia." And she lost her damn mind. She started screaming and crying, and actual big fat tears, and saying, "You're not going to take me. I won't go. I'll hide under my bed.
Oh.
I'll hide in the lamp. You won't be able to find me.
I'll hide in the lamp.
I'll hide in the lamp." Yeah.
And now she hates her birthday. No presents again, ever.
But interesting though, I mean, once she kind of figured out that we were actually going to take all of our stuff,
Yes.
she was much more willing to go. she like interpreted it as like we're just
She
going to
thought
leave
we
the
were just-
house
yeah.
as is and just
And
go.
she wanted to know, like, who will get my things? Will we get to take our dog?
How much
Aw.
easier would moving be if you just like picked
my
yourself
God.
up and went to another house that had all the stuff
Jordan,
there?
do you know how many times I've thought about actually doing that? Like, so many times.
Wow.
But it's funny how, like, such simple things like that are such a given to us. She'd never moved, so she didn't know we pack things in boxes and take them.
Mm-hmm.
She thought her bed would stay. And then when we said, no, we move everything in the house, then there was a misunderstanding because she thought they pick up the house and they take the house,
with the
and
house
we
on a
live in the
trailer.
same house. It was all very confusing. And,
Yeah, things you totally take for granted
yeah.
as an adult who has moved before.
Yeah. I mean, we had done it so many times we knew what to do, but we didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. So we didn't know what she would struggle with. And then what I also didn't anticipate was the grieving that she did after we got there. So she's a fairly well-behaved kid and really is pretty verbal, even from a very young age. So we always kind of knew where she stood and how she felt about things. But she started throwing fits once we got to Philadelphia that were epic. I mean, like truly kicking and biting. And it was like behavior we'd never seen before. And it was one of my best friends is a therapist. And she came to visit. And the night that she threw, our oldest threw one of the biggest fits she'd ever had in her life, my friend Melanie was like, can I do a session with her? And she sat down, and it was like, this is just grief. It's a loss of all of her friends and all of her comfort and everything that she knew and understood. And so when we moved from Philadelphia to Dallas, I'm like Hermione, when in doubt, go to the library. And so I found there's a book called When Children Grieve, and it's I can't remember the author right now, but it was a helpful resource because it was about moving, divorce, death, any kind of loss, and how children process that so much differently than adults. And so I tried to get ahead of it, I guess, get ahead of the scary stuff. But, she was a little bit older and better able to handle it. And the younger one, who's normally very sensitive and who I expected to have some of those same behaviors, she was like, whatever, dude, let's go to kindergarten. I'm ready. So
It was already going to be a transitional time for her
Yes.
in going to kindergarten. So it was just
Exactly.
all of the transition at once instead of, oh, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of people said that to us when we moved to Philadelphia, and the oldest went into kindergarten. They said, "Oh, this is a good time for y'all to move." Everyone's new anyway. Better now than later. When really I was like, yeah, except I know we're not going to be here for a long time.
And
then later when we do it again, but that worked out well.
So, how did your oldest adjust the second time that you moved? 3 years later, which was just recently.
Yeah, we just moved to Dallas a little over a year ago, and she's a cool kid for a lot of reasons. I don't know how much of it she's a resilient kid too, and I don't know how much of it is due to the moving or if it's just hardwired. But one of the things I made sure to do right off the bat was to get her hooked into stuff right away. So she's been in Girl Scouts since she was in kindergarten. So I found a troop before we left Philadelphia.
That's smart. How did you tell him the second time?
Give him a box.
It went so well.
last time.
There was no lamp hiding.
First time. I don't remember. How did we tell him?
Dad dressed as a cowboy.
I think it was over dinner.
We took him to Texas Roadhouse.
That's right.
We took him to Texas Roadhouse, which ironically is based out of Louisville, Kentucky. But we were living in Philadelphia at the time, and there was in the little town that we were just in the little like suburb of Philly that we lived in, there was a Texas Roadhouse nearby, and I bought them on Amazon Prime. I primed some Texas coloring books and Texas necklaces with this shape of Texas on it. Something else.
I don't remember.
And we went to Texas Roadhouse and sat him down, and we said, "Oh, hey, we have a present for you, for each of you."
So you kind of did the same thing.
Kind of the same
Texas
thing.
jelly beans.
You know, we learned from a lot of things
We
except
didn't
for that.
do we didn't do the big box. Hey, that was the big box.
We
was
did
the
it in
kiss
a
of death.
public place, so they felt a little bit.
So they
That's
couldn't hide
true.
the lamps
That's
at
right.
home.
That's
Right.
true. In Kentucky, it was at our kitchen table, and that did not go well, so we did not do that. And actually, this time it was received very differently because we're from Texas. Now, we're not from Dallas. We're from the Houston area, and so we have family in the Houston area, and Austin, and Galveston. But to the girls, Texas means grandparents and aunts and uncles.
Yeah.
And so it was, we had to explain to them, well, actually, no, we're going to be still a little bit far from everybody, but we're going to be in the same state.
Texas is a big state.
Texas is kind of big. I don't know if you've looked at a map recently, but it's kind of big. Everything is real far away from Dallas is like southern Oklahoma, basically. But they took it a lot better. Now, they were pretty, especially my oldest, was pretty bummed out about leaving her friends. And it took us a while to find our tribe in Louisville. It didn't take us as long in Philly. And I do think that some of that, one of the benefits and one of the differences in moving with children versus without children, because we've done both, you really have a lot more opportunity to hook into groups of people and little networks within that community because of kids. Because you take them to gymnastics, or you join a Girl Scout troop, or they need to take piano lessons or whatever, and you find these people as you're trying to get their activity. It's just a little harder for adults to do that with each other.
I think too, the older we get, the better we get at identifying our kind of people earlier.
Absolutely.
You know, I remember when Jordan and I first moved to Louisville, I don't want to say we were desperate, but we did feel a little like, oh, these people want to hang out with us, so we should definitely hang out with them because we have no friends here.
Yeah, totally.
And then later, once we started collecting people, we started looking at our little people collection and going, these are the people that we find ourselves wanting to hang out with more. These are the people we have less in common with.
We did our Madeline Kahn, yes, no, yes.
I always called them practice friends.
Oh, yeah. It sounds so cruel.
It does.
But it's true, and we all experience this.
I don't think it's like, it's not a thing that makes you a shitty person. It's just a natural part of being new somewhere. You'll fall in. It's happened in every city we've lived in. We've had a set of practice friends. And it's like the people you find first. And for a little while, they serve that purpose. And then it's like you kind of outgrow each other. Yeah. Or you kind of realize it was never really going to work for the long term anyway. The cool thing about Philly was we really did find a tribe really quickly. So they you guys threw us a good goodbye party in Louisville when we left, and
the Philadelphia party.
The fuck yeah Philadelphia party. And then
actually, wasn't it Philadelphia fuck you?
It might have been.
Might have been that.
I think we had a sign that said "Fuck you, Philadelphia." Actually,
yeah.
Maybe the cake said that.
And we took a bunch of inappropriate pictures that I can't show my children from that night. Although you remember what you said, babe, about everyone was so sad when we left, and you were like, I don't feel like
I'm sad.
No, that's not what he said. He said, except that, like, people were giving Brian a hard time because his job was moving us away. So they were like, you're taking everyone away, and this is your fault. And he was like, yeah, I mean, it is my fault that we're leaving, But I'm also not getting any credit for me being the reason that we were here to begin with.
But it is true though. Like, I mean, from my point of view, I mean, it was like because of my career that we've had to pick up, the family twice and move across the country, and like I feel that burden. I feel like I'm moving my kids away from their friends and Lauren and the community that she had with musical theater in both Louisville and Philly, and every time we do that, like I feel kind of responsible.
But I don't feel like it's been more of a. I think it's been more of a blessing than a burden.
Yeah, but I mean, it always works out. Like it always, like we just make the best of it, and we get ingrained, and we meet new people, and we have new experiences, and growing up in Texas, I never thought I'd live in Philadelphia, and enjoy it, and we loved it. We loved the people there. There was so much to do.
Yeah, we never thought we'd live in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm not gonna lie.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it's so off the radar for us. Like I didn't even know where. If you had said Louisville, I would have been like, Louisville, what?
Yeah. When he called me, I was getting my tires rotated when we were living in. Where were we? When we were living in Milwaukee. And he was like, okay, well, I've been assigned to Louisville, Kentucky, and I literally said, you mean the place with the horses? That I know nothing else about that place.
See, I didn't even know the horses thing.
That's funny.
Nothing. But I'm telling you, and you're right, Brian. It did work out for the best, and I think part of that is because of who we are as people.
Right.
We choose to make the best of all situations.
Right. Right.
And I think we're intrinsically fairly positive people, practical but also positive.
Sure. Realistic.
But I'm honestly very fortunate that Lauren has been an absolute trooper. I mean, she has jumped in. She's done a bunch of research every time we've moved. She's looked at the school districts and what's best for our family and getting them involved. And she took a lot of that burden, and allowed me to focus, that transition from work.
Yeah, because that's big too.
Yeah, it's a starting over for everybody, and you have to do your due diligence to make sure that where you're going, you might not get it exactly right, but you can come close.
So some of that due diligence you've talked about, which is like figuring out how to plug your kids into a network immediately, which all makes sense. What about moving houses for kids? Like, what did you think about, and how did you incorporate them into the house hunting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we made the conscious decision to not take them with us house hunting. Now, especially when they were older, we really did talk about it. Like, should they come with us? Should this be... But as you know, this is a complicated process, picking a house. And it's...
an emotional process.
And you can get attached and then not get it.
Right.
Yeah, and so they don't know what they don't know. I think it's the second time I've said that in this recording, but it's true. They didn't know all of the options that we had and all of the things that we had to weigh to decide. So we left them with family, and we went house hunting each time. And then once the choice was made and we'd signed papers, that's when we showed them pictures and gave them the virtual tour and showed them pictures of the neighborhood and things. FaceTime their schools and whatever. But it wasn't
FaceTime their schools.
Like when we were traveling, like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like
the way
when we were actually in Texas, we showed them.
Like, oh look, here's where you're going to be.
Oh yeah,
this is what your school's going to look like.
Like
here's
you were on FaceTime while you were driving around.
Yeah. Here's the park where that's closest.
But we asked them, like, what would you want in a house? Like, there's certain features that make sure that we would look for. One was a pool. They wanted an absolute pool. So that made it as part of our top. If we're going to move them across country, at least if we can find a house. Yeah, if we can.
And then Emery, our oldest, wanted a nook. She wanted a reading nook in her room. And what was so funny about that was there were a couple of houses we looked at down in Dallas. One of them had the freaking coolest reading nook ever. You remember that house in Allen?
Yeah.
And it had right above the front door was like a little hobbit hole with a window. Well, the property taxes there were insane. It was like a second mortgage. There was no way we could afford it. So she didn't get the nook, but she got a really cool house with all these other things. So she's touring the house of one one of the first days we were in it. And in our bathroom, there's a bathtub, big soaking bathtub, and a ledge with like one of those storybook windows.
Mm-hmm.
She walks into our bathroom and she goes, Mom, you got a nook. Like, you got the nook for yourself. And I was like, wait, no. It's a bathtub. Like, nobody sits in that nook to read. That's, yeah. But
you can use my nook.
You can use my nook to sit and read above my bathtub. That's a little weird, but.
Would you try to empower them with other decisions on, like, maybe which room, they want, and they can kind of decide that or how they decorate it?
They're like, we would like the master bathroom.
Thank you. We want the master bathroom.
We would like that nook area.
We let them pick paint colors, and we painted right away whatever they wanted. And I did a lot of research about moving specifically, so there were a few little tips and tricks that I've picked up over the years. We always like we're doing now, road tripping with you guys. We would road trip to our new house, and every time we've moved, I did this. I would go to the dollar store and buy, 15 different presents, 2 of everything.
That would be 14.
No, 15, 30.
Oh, 30, I got it.
2 of everything, 15 different
being
presents.
the engineer, it had to be even. But anyway, go ahead.
Shut up. No, 30. So for 15, we were driving from Philadelphia to Dallas. It's a 25-hour trip if you do it nonstop. We took about 5 days.
Wow.
So every time we stopped, every rest stop, every, sightseeing venture, it's a shitty thing to drive across the country, and it's hard, and you're tired, and you don't want to get back in your car seat if you're a little person. And so I would incentivize them and say, at the next time we get back in, you get a present. And so it made the road trip a little less painful. And then when we got there, we had a first night box. We would usually order pizza. I think we ordered pizza in Philly. And we would sit on the floor of our new house and eat our dinner with our hands. That was always really fun. And then you have a first night box. So you have, and it's got to be labeled for the moving company. Like, this has to be taken off the truck first.
Like the coffee pot.
It has to have a coffee pot in it with coffee and mugs. It has to have a shower curtain and soap, a set of sheets if you need if the beds are coming. As soon as they unload the beds, we know where the sheets are.
That's so smart. I never thought to do that, but this is brilliant. A first night box, and this is okay. So what else?
We're never moving. So
first night box.
Well, this is for other people. This whole episode is for other people. We are never moving.
Don't move. It's such a pain in the ass. But if you do, you need a first night box. You also need to either colored markers or colored duct tape to label boxes with. Now, that's if you're moving yourself. If you are lucky like us and you get a relocation package, they move all the shit for you. But if that happens, make sure you clean out your trash can, because they will literally load actual trash in your trash cans into boxes and ship your trash.
Or a potted plant.
Oh, yeah. Carrie got me an orchid. She bought me an orchid in Philly. A friend of ours, a mutual friend of Lene and Jordan's and Brian's and mine, and they packed my orchid. And I unwrapped it dead when we were in Philadelphia, and I cried. I was already grieving. It was really rough. And then the other thing, especially for kids, that I think is really, really important, and just like a logistical, tactical thing to check off your list, is theirs should be the first rooms unpacked.
You want them to get settled.
They need a space. They need a safe space. So it's not going to be perfect, but their bed needs to be ready. They need to have a few little creature comforts, whether that's a beanbag chair they love, or favorite books or toys. That needs to happen first. And the kitchen and the kids' rooms. Your room, it's hard for everybody, but adults can sort of cope. Kids don't have the language to tell us when they're struggling all the time, and so it's helpful for them to have a little safe space that looks familiar.
Yeah, that's smart. I have to say, Jordan and I, we moved around a lot before we landed in Louisville, and we we prided ourselves on the fact that every time we would move, we would unpack everything the day we moved in.
Yeah.
I mean, we would have pictures hung on the wall.
Yeah.
We were those people. If there were any boxes unpacked, it was like the boxes that were going to never be unpacked.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I guess we're kind of more that way than we're not. Although the burden usually does fall on me because I'm the one with the most open schedule when we get, like, I'm a full-time mom and then I have part-time side hustles. But my job for 2 or 3 months when we are in a new city is establishing us, getting our house settled, getting the utilities settled, getting the kids, and Brian's off creating a reputation and, creating his space at work, and the kids are going to school. And but I do remember, and so I would work. I would wake up at 6 a.m. and immediately start unpacking and figuring out what cabinets things need to go in and stuff. And when we were in Philly, I remember one day I had gotten up at 6:30 in the morning, unpacked and put things away for literally 12 hours.
Wow.
And it was about 6:15 at night. We had ordered food. I hadn't even stopped to cook anything. It's kind of hard to cook when your kitchen's topsy-turvy. And I was walking down the hall with a pair of scissors to open another box. And I literally stopped in the middle of the hallway and went, "Oh, I'm done. Oh, I've done all I can do. Today I'm going to go to bed now." Because it was just, it's physically demanding. Getting your space set up. And I think you have to sort of go in with the mindset that it's going to take probably at least 2 months. It's going to take at least 2 months to get everything just right. And that's if you're going at a kind of an even clip,
We realized, though, moving with kids is very different.
Yeah.
And they have so much more stuff.
Yes.
I could not believe when we moved with our daughter to the house that we're in now, how much more stuff there was with only one extra kid.
It's amazing, the amount of stuff.
Out of control is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why we're never moving.
It is a good excuse to purge, and a good excuse to talk about donating to people who don't have all the things that you do, and creating community in that way. But it's also a huge pain in the ass. So it just depends on how you look at it, or maybe which day you ask.
You definitely need to purge before you move.
Yes.
You don't want to purge after.
No, because you won't. It's too much when you get there. There's just a lot to process.
And I see Louisville skyline ahead of us.
Yes.
Yay. So what else do we need to talk about for anybody who might be moving with their kids? Any last thoughts? Last words of wisdom?
I would just say stay positive, make it an experience. I mean, it's all part of a journey. It's like every time you move, there's some good stuff that happens. There's some stuff that you have to leave behind.
For sure.
But you do it together. You do it as a team.
And we like to. I mean, we use the word adventure a lot because it is an adventure. And it's exciting, and I think if you phrase things that way for the kids, like when we moved to Philly, we made remember our little dub smash video that we did of, we did a lip sync video of that Cups song, You're Gonna Miss Me When I'm Gone.
Yeah.
And that was fun. It was a fun activity. Every place we stopped, we were like, okay, we're gonna do this part of the video just with our iPhone, like just goofing off. And it was just a fun way to create memories and to turn something that could have been really sad and hard, and was really sad and hard, into something that was more that had a little bit of fun and whimsy to it.
I love it. Well, you guys are awesome. We love you. We love road tripping with you.
We love you.
And you are an inspiration for us. Every time I have friends who are moving, I share all of the things that you've shared with me over the time. And one of the things, for those of us that aren't actually moving ourselves but have friends that are moving, one of the things you said to me, Lauren, long time ago that's really stuck with me and I think applies to a lot of different things is one of the hardest parts about moving away from friends is everyone is really, really supportive for the first month.
Yeah.
And they always stay in close touch. And then the reality is life happens, and they have to go on about their lives, and you have to go on about yours. And it's after that first month that it gets really sad.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I have tried to do a better job of figuring out ways to connect and touch base with people beyond the first month after something sad and hard, like a move or other things happen.
Yeah, that's important, because that's when it gets quiet, and that's when people get back to their routines. And it does, moving does clarify relationships, because the geography makes it really easy to fall out of touch with people. But it also clarifies them in a good way, and it helps you see who's going to stick around. Like we have you guys in Louisville, and some other, like, I call them framily, people that are like your chosen family. We have family in Philadelphia. We have those people everywhere, and that's one of the things that's the most bittersweet, I think, is I say all the time, when you've moved the way we have, and you've had children in other cities, and you've established your life in other cities, and then left them behind, it means you're never really home again, because home is a lot of different places, and home is a lot of different people. And so while that is obviously sad for, very clear reasons, it's also a real gift, because it means that there are a lot of people I can call. I have a lot of ride or dies in a lot of cities in this country, and that is such a blessing. And I know with 100% certainty, if we had not set out on this adventure, that would not be true.
Yeah.
So I feel very grateful for that opportunity, and I feel very grateful for all those people that have, you have literally driven across the country to be with my family, and that's really special and not something everybody's willing to do. So it helps you see who's going to stick around,
Love it. And we love you.
We love you.
And I hope that this can be a resource for all of our friends and listeners who have this kind of journey ahead of them, this kind of adventure ahead of them, or have friends who have this kind of adventure ahead of them, and that you guys can be a great resource for that. So
We forgot to introduce our bourbon.
Oh, but we're driving. No bourbon. No, we do not advocate for drinking and driving.
We drank all the bourbon last night. That's what you can tell them what we drank last night.
Last night we had lots of old fashions.
Old fashions.
Right. We were at a friend's wedding, and they had a specialty cocktail at their bar, and it was an old fashioned, and it was delicious, and the wedding was wonderful.
So we're suffering from posthumous old fashions.
We still got some of it floating around in our systems.
That's right.
Probably.
And for our listeners, we are crossing the bridge as we speak right now from Indiana into Kentucky.
This is the Sherman.
And I'm hitting traffic, so we've got to go right now, because it's one of those it's telling me which lanes to be in. Oh my God! All right.
We love our bourbon.
We love our babies.
But as always,
drink responsibly.
We will see you next week. Hello, this is Jordan, and thank you all so much for tuning in to Bourbon and Babies. Now, while we did say that we had some old-fashioned last night at the wedding, I felt like I had to give you all something new, a new bourbon cocktail, since we've done the old-fashioned, actually I think twice now through our seasons. So I found one called the Time Will Tell, which I thought tied in really well with the theme of relocating in children, because, it's a new experience, and you gotta wait for the time to tell you how things are going to work out. And this is a surprisingly delicious cocktail that is 2 ounces of bourbon, a half an ounce of maple syrup, a half an ounce of lemon juice, and some fresh thyme. And you muddle that thyme and add the rest of the ingredients, stir it over ice, and enjoy. I was surprised at how sweet this is, but those fresh herbs really elevate the flavors of this cocktail. Thank you all again for listening, and we will see you next week.